It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can email me as well at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Today is a very special day because I am broadcasting live from our sister station in San Francisco, 560 KSFO. I'll be up here today. I'll be up here tomorrow. I'll be up here for the John Phillips Show on Wednesday, and then I drive down to Carmel, and then I spend a couple of days in Carmel by the sea, and then I drive down and do one day in Buellton, and then I'll be back in Los Angeles. Because you know what? It is summer vacation season. It's supposed to be the busiest 4th of July holiday of all time, probably because it's on a Thursday. So everyone's going to be doing absolutely nothing this week. And we thought we'd spend it up here. And boy, are we lucky that we did. Because I found out today that the weather in San Francisco isn't usually like the way it is today, which is perfect. I'm talking about no fog. It's 75 and sunny in July. And apparently, usually in July in San Francisco, it's foggy and cold. So it's been really, really beautiful. This is the most time I've spent in San Francisco proper ever. And I'm really, really, really enjoying this city. You know, we cover it a lot in the news. We talk a lot about San Francisco on the John Phillips Show. We talk a lot about Oakland. Don't think I'm ready to go to Oakland, but I love walking around this city. And the thing that really shocked me was how gorgeous Golden Gate Park is. I had no idea. It's even bigger than Central Park, apparently, and it is just beautiful and gorgeous. And you feel like you're in a complete other world surrounded by a big city. So having a great time. Also, something I didn't know I was going to experience, but now I'm kind of a huge fan, Waymo. The robot cars, tried them for the first time yesterday, and we've tried them 3 times since then, and it is pretty cool. And I don't know if it's a San Francisco thing or what, but all the Waymos here are these Jaguar EVs. They are very nice cars, and you just sit in the back, and the robot drives in the slow San Francisco traffic for you, and you get to pick your music. So that's a lot of fun. Getting to San Francisco was a nightmare, though. And we didn't think it would be because I looked how traffic was a couple days before, and it seemed that if we left early in the morning and went the boring way up the 5 freeway, which means you got to pass through Coalinga, put your air conditioning on, recirculate, that we'd get up to San Francisco, get up to our hotel in downtown San Francisco by probably 5 hours and 15 minutes, 5 hours and 30 minutes, and everything was looking great. We didn't miss a step. And we flew up the 5 freeway, 0 traffic, except for some weird 7 a.m. traffic in Valencia because they're doing all that construction on the 5. But besides that, we flew all the way up to you change over to the 580, and then you take that to the 80, which takes you through Alameda County, through Oakland, and onto the Bay Bridge, which I just found out is the Willie Brown Bridge. And that's when the traffic nightmare began. And we only had no idea what we were really in for, but oh my goodness. Just to get on the bridge is quite the ordeal because they have figured out a system where they put you into 10 lanes and then break that down into 5 lanes and then break that down into 4 lanes to finally get on the Bay Bridge. But then you're finally on it. You go through the Bay Bridge. You see Angels Island. You see Alcatraz off to the side. You see San Francisco. And then everything came to a screeching halt, literally, because my wife and I had planned this trip for weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. We knew what day we were driving up. The thing we did not check is if anything was going on in San Francisco on June 30th, the last day of June in San Francisco. And all of a sudden, my traffic navigation app, I was using Apple. My wife was using Google as a backup. We're very confused on where to go because Apple wanted me to take Mission Street to get to the hotel. And I wanted to go up the Mission. Couldn't go up the Mission. All the ways to get onto Mission were closed. What could be going on? So then we get directed via Google, which knew about the closures, to a different street. So we take this side street to this side street. We end up on a street called Folsom. And then time stopped. I have never experienced it this bad in my life, but I was caught in the worst traffic jam that I've ever experienced. It took us 2.5 hours to go about 2 or 3 blocks. We were on Folsom and 2nd, and we needed to get to Folsom and Main. And that stretch right there took 2 hours. Traffic was insanity. Cars drive completely, and it's almost like there was no enforcement whatsoever, or there wasn't going to be any enforcement whatsoever, because cars would drive on the wrong side of the road if that would give them an advantage. Cars would go into things that aren't lanes to try to cut across. Cars would block city buses. Nobody was getting through, but nobody was getting an advantage. The only way that the line seemed to move forward was that people would give up and get back on the Bay Bridge, which was not going to take anyone to where they needed to go. Eventually, we realized why all the traffic was happening. Turns out I drove into San Francisco in the middle of the Pride Parade. And that is not a thing that you want to do if you want to get anywhere in the city of San Francisco. You saw people abandoning their Ubers, people abandoning their Lyfts, but we were stuck. We were trying to be the courteous drivers that were in the correct lane. I wasn't going to cut like people do on the 405 in Los Angeles, that people do all the time here. I didn't want to cut the line and be in a turn lane and then merge at the last second. Oh, there was a person in front of us that was letting everybody do that, and that was very infuriating. There was so much honking going on. There was so much misery going on. And the only way my wife and I got through it was listening to a Harry Potter book on tape, because we had about 10 hours left in that book, and we got way further than I thought I would. So I'm here. I'm happy to be here. I am going to give you some updates on some of the stories that we've been following over the last couple of weeks, but also I'd love to hear if you have a traffic horror story for me, because I definitely experienced the worst traffic of my life yesterday, and it gives you a very special feeling. There's a little despair, also combined with there's nothing I can do about this. I'm just here. There is nowhere else to go. It's not like we can't go to the hotel. It's not like we can park the car and just abandon it because it's full of our luggage and it's San Francisco and we'll definitely get our car broken into. If you've been stuck in an absolute traffic nightmare, I'd love to know if you can beat me. It took me 2 hours to go 2 blocks. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. We'll fold some of those calls in as we all get ready for the 4th of July holiday. But let's go back to Friday for a moment, because there's quite a bit of celebration. Why? The County of Los Angeles and the City of Los Angeles, through their homeless agency, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, had a huge announcement. For the first time in many, 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 many years, the number of homeless people in Los Angeles didn't go down. It didn't go up. It went slightly down. And this is cause for celebration. On the same day that the Supreme Court ruled in the Grants Pass case, which means that cities that want to can start enforcing their quality of life laws again. Burbank, I'm looking at you. Beverly Hills. We know you're going to do it. Culver City, you might do it. Santa Monica is a lost cause at this point. And Los Angeles and unincorporated L.A., well, you know who's in charge. Good luck. They were the only major elected officials that wanted to vouch for the other side in this case. Gavin Newsom was pro-Grants Pass. London Breed, pro-Grants Pass. Matt Mahan, mayor of San Jose, pro-Grants Pass. Todd Gloria, mayor of San Diego, pro-Grants Pass. Sheng Tao, mayor of Oakland. Nobody asked what she had to say because she's crooked. Let's go to Valicia Adams-Kellum, Dr. Valicia Adams-Kellum, the head of LASHA for this announcement. And let's not forget that she is solving this problem and making a pretty penny while out doing it. She makes $430,000 a year, which is 2/3 of a fake doctor.
I would like to begin with a comment on the Grants Pass decision. It will be up to every city and county of Los Angeles and the Board of Supervisors, elected officials, to decide on how we move forward.
Burbank, you do you, buddy.
LASHA will stay focused on ending unsheltered homelessness and speeding up how quickly we move people into permanent housing.
I want you to focus on the fact that she gave a qualifier to the term homelessness.
On ending unsheltered homelessness and
because it's not about getting people out of this and correcting their lives and getting them on the right path. It's about getting them into a motel. And we don't really have the energy to fix all the other problems. So if we get them in the motel, we win.
We do not agree with criminalizing homelessness. In fact, as you will hear in a moment, the results of this year's homeless count strongly support our best practices approach that aligns.
Oh, okay, we got some best practices here. Okay, maybe let's not prejudge. Maybe they know what they're talking about. Maybe Grants Pass isn't the way to go, which is just telling homeless people they got to move along or they're going to get a fine. It is not that you go to jail for sleeping on the street. That is not what's happening here. Now, in certain cities that don't have the lax drug laws that California has, you might get arrested if you've got meth on you. Not in California, but other states you might. But okay, Felicia Adams-Kellum says we have the best practices and we've got the numbers. Let's find out.
That aligns all levels of government and our providers around saving lives by resolving encampments and bringing people indoors. We believe in housing and services, not arrests. And now I'll continue with my presentation.
Okay, you've given us the preamble. You've told us why Grants Pass is wrong. So what are the numbers? Are you ready?
Finally, we have encouraging news. Homelessness in Los Angeles County as a whole declined by 0.27%.
That is the tout of success. The number didn't go up. That's how you know it was a success. It went down 0.25%. Yay! It went from 76,000 to 75,500. Didn't we do a good job? We spent so much money to do it, too. And in November, we're going to ask you for even more money.
To an estimate 75,312 people. The city of Los Angeles experienced a decrease as well, down 2.2% to an estimated 45,252 people.
Although, if the city got a drop of 3,000, but the entire county only had a drop of about 200 or 300, they didn't really go anywhere. They just went from the city of Los Angeles to a different city, or more likely, unincorporated Los Angeles, because if you live in unincorporated East LA, unincorporated Northwest LA, unincorporated South LA, like near Gardena and the Harbor Gateway, your mayor, your city council person, your everything is a member of the Board of Supervisors. Holly, Hilda, Catherine, Janice, Lindsay, they're in charge. And they are unified in saying they don't want to do anything about enforcing quality of life laws. Yes, even Catherine.
This figure for LA County includes results from all 4 continuums of care within the county. Next slide.
Oh, you Barbara Ferrer?
This result is quite meaningful after years, 6 years in fact, of increases in homelessness.
And increases in budgets.
As we'll discuss later in this presentation, evidence suggests that our aligned approach and coordinated efforts to address unsheltered street homelessness are having an impact.
An impact of 0.27%.
Next slide. Notably, while the overall numbers are somewhat similar to last year, the ratio of unsheltered versus sheltered people experiencing homelessness is shifting in the direction that we want to see. The estimate for unsheltered homelessness or street homelessness in the county of Los Angeles decreased by approximately 5.1% compared with last year. While the shelter...
Now, does that mean they're in the shelter full time, or is that where they sleep and they're still running around the streets all day? Some people, and this is true, we found this out, that some people have the housing, they have the shelter, they're in a Project Room Key, they're in a Project Home Key, they're in an Inside Safe, but they also have a tent on the boardwalk. because that's vacation property.
while the shelter count increased by 12.7%. This is encouraging. Yes.
Who started off that slow clap? So there you go. Lots of celebration at LASHA. The number in the county went down 0.27%. More of these people are in shelter than are on the streets. But for what we're paying for all this, don't know if you could call this best practices. Maybe you could. I mean, the numbers didn't go up, so yay. When we come back, it is time to update you on one of the most weird and oddly necessary laws that has come into effect in the state of California. It is the News Blitz. It's Randy Wang broadcasting live from KSFO in San Francisco. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day, 5 to 6, talking about the local issues that matter to you most. We take your phone calls at 800-222-KABC. I am broadcasting live this week from KSFO in San Francisco, and I am so happy to be here because currently the weather in San Francisco is 71 and sunny, and the weather in the valley is excessive heat warning, high 80s. Oh, boy. In Vegas, it's 105. Having a great time up here. And here, I'm going to tell you, and I'm actually in shock, and I'm going to give London Breed some credit. As long as you don't go to the Tenderloin, as long as you don't go to Soma, San Francisco is fairly clean. Okay, my hotel's near the Chinatown area, and the park near there definitely could use some trash pickups. But I got to say, and I've had many people ask me this, so you're in San Francisco. Have you seen a poo-poo yet? I have not seen a poo-poo. No poo-poos. Can you believe that? It is actually a lot cleaner than it used to be. Again, as long as you don't go anywhere near the Tenderloin. And I would also say Soma. See, we were walking around looking for a place to go dinner, and my wife wanted to get some fresh seafood because, you know, we're in San Francisco. We're near Fisherman's Wharf. Now, she has a gluten allergy, so she can't usually get, clam chowder. There's a lot of gluten in that. However, we found a place that was near walking distance that was off of 2nd and Market called Luke's, and they had Luke's Lobster, and they had lobster rolls, gluten-free lobster bisque, gluten-free crab bisque, gluten-free clam chowder. And it was pretty delicious. However, walking to Luke's as we are going down 2nd Street to get to Market in the Soma, south of Market neighborhood, all of a sudden the streets started to look a little dirtier. You'd pass by an alleyway, look to my right, and my wife literally said, I think someone's doing crack over there. Because they were. But other than that, I really haven't seen that much. Again, you stay out of those neighborhoods, and we decided not to walk back at that point. And that's when we decided to take our chances. Instead of walking through Soma, we decided to take our chance on a robot, and we took the Waymo. And I really like the Waymo. The Waymo is a lot of fun. Love my Lyfts, love my Ubers, but there's something really cool about the robot. It does a pretty good job. I'm sure there's a lot of people that wouldn't do it, that they'd be freaked out by it, but I thought it was pretty cool. If you'd like to email us, you could do so at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. AJ writes in on a comparison. Hey, which moves slower? The traffic you are in or the decline in homelessness being reported? You know what? Even though it only took me 2 hours to go 2 blocks in San Francisco on Pride Day, the rate that we're trying to solve the homeless problem in Los Angeles moves much slower than that snail's pace. 800-222-KABC is the phone number, 1-800-222-5222. When we come back, I'm going to tell you about a crazy new law that's going to affect anybody going to a bar in the state of California. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can email us as well, randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. Glenn writes in on the homeless count. Wow, Randy. 0.27%. That's amazing. I wonder what the margin of error is in that BS count that I personally did once upon a time. I also wonder what percentage of unhoused overdose deaths are for the county. I'm sure it's higher than 0.27%. What an amazing job our leadership is doing out here. Ugh. That's Glenn in Tahunga. Yeah, according to their own estimates, whether it's Karen Bass, Felicia Adams-Kellum, Holly Mitchell, they would tell you that overdose deaths account for 5 people a day, which would be what, 1,500, 16, 17? I have a calculator right here. Why am I trying to do this in my head? Come on, I'm in radio. So let's say it's 5 people a day, which I think it's higher than that, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And there's what, 365 days a year? All right, 1,800 people. So if the number only went down 200, but 1,800 are overdose, I don't know what to tell you. There's also the fact that the numbers were wrong last year and they were wrong the year before that. And we had a report on this very show a few months ago from Sue Pasco over at Circling the News that the LASHA people, in doing this count, changed the way they did it, and they no longer were counting anyone that lived on the beach, which is strange if you're trying to count the number of people that live in those beach communities, whether it be Venice, whether it be the Palisades, Will Rogers. So we'll see what happens with that. But right now, they're all patting themselves on the back for that 0.27% drop and saying, don't you dare start enforcing the law because the Supreme Court said you can. Now, it is the 1st of July, and the 1st of July usually means a whole bunch of new laws in the state of California are finally going to take effect. It also means the gas tax is going up a small percentage, so enjoy that if you happen to be a gas driver. One of the laws that came into effect starting today, I found very interesting. It is a law that's supposed to protect people in a very specific situation because there happen to be some monsters that live in the state of California. And there happens to be a really messed up situation out there called date rape, where you go on a date with a girl, she goes to the bathroom, you slip something in her drink because you are Mr. Bill Cosby. To prevent anything like that from happening in the future, all bars and restaurants, anywhere that serves alcohol, will be required to provide testing kits, little strips like a pH strip you put in your drink to make sure there's no GHB or a Mickey in it. For more, here's NBC4.
July 1st, the new state law requires bars with a particular type of liquor license to offer patrons a way to test if their drink has been spiked with a drug.
The law makes it easier to see if your drink is safe. Karma Dickerson.
Now, does anything happen to the perpetrator if the strip turns blue and you find out they did spike it?
Karma Dickerson joins us now live from Culver City with more. Karma.
Yes, keep an eye on your drink. It's something many people, particularly women, have been told basically since we've been old enough to drink. And this new law does mandate a tool that...
Guys can be so disgustingly desperate. I don't know what it is.
Tool that can help double check to see if that drink is in fact safe. So based on this new law starting tomorrow, people who are bars in particular with the type 48 liquor license, which are basically places that primarily serve alcohol, are required to offer drug test kits to customers. These test kits should be able to detect substances like Rohypnol,
So if it's a restaurant, they don't have to do this. But if it's just a bar, your typical dive where the only food they have there maybe is peanuts, and they probably don't even have that anymore, we got to make sure that you're not getting roofied.
These test kits should be able to detect substances like Rohypnol.
And you know what? Whoever invented the term roofie, how dare you? That is a funny word, and it describes a tragic situation.
These test kits should be able to detect substances like Rohypnol, GHB, things that are commonly called date rape drugs. In downtown Culver City, we visited Bar Bohemian, and their staff says that although their particular liquor license doesn't require them to offer these drug test kits, they ordered them anyway. Bartender Aiden Rennie tells us that they plan to make the kits available free to anyone who has concerns starting tomorrow.
Now, can we be a little more creative with this? I mean, having to put like what looks like a pH strip in a drink, shake it around to make sure that you weren't drugged on a date. It is a valiant effort. And I hate that it has come to this, but nobody should have to go through that. But why don't we incorporate the test strip into like a swizzle stick or a stir straw? That way you'll know immediately, and it doesn't encumber the beautiful visual amazingness that is a great cocktail.
Bartender Aiden Rennie tells us that they plan to make the kits available free to anyone who has concerns starting tomorrow.
I think it's a great idea. I support it. I think it's extremely important. And I think it's also the bar owners and bartenders' responsibility to make sure that they're held accountable, and it's their responsibility to look after the people that are in their bar.
That's a fair point. I also just want to make sure that, let's say a strip turns blue, we find out that somebody had slipped a Mickey, had put in a roofie, had spiked a drink. I want to make sure something happens to them, because we know who's in charge in LA County, and we know who thinks a whole bunch of crimes are not crimes. But anybody doing that should be in prison, including Cosby.
And the new law also requires bars to display a sign saying, "Don't get roofied, drink spiking drug test kits available here." Ask a staff member for details. And though this new law goes into effect...
Now, do you do it on your own when he's in the bathroom, or you do it in front of him? That would be pretty bold. Well, I've talked to you for the last hour and a half. You seem extra shady. Before I decide to continue on with this date, let's get the test results. The results are in. It'll be like the Maury Povich show.
Ask a staff member for details. And though this new law goes into effect statewide starting tomorrow, there are some other places, for example, Long Beach, West Hollywood, that have already had similar programs in place. Reporting live, I'm Karma Dickerson, NBC4 News.
Now, this specific law, this specific story was really interesting to me, because if I go back in my past, and no, I don't have a story where I was roofied or I roofied somebody, so just get that out of your head right now. I would never do that, and nobody would ever need to do that to me. That being said, many years ago, even before I met my wife, there was a dark time in the life of Randy Wang. That dark time was 2012. 2012 was the year that I thought it was a really good idea to quit my current radio job that I had at the time. Don't worry, a year later, I started at KBC, and everything's been great since then. I started hanging out with a big party crowd. I went to a whole bunch of music festivals. I did a lot of drugs I probably should not have done. Molly was my very good friend that year. And I was talking to a whole bunch of people that were not for, that really I shouldn't have been around. Bad influences. There were some good people in there too, but for the most part, bad influences. This was also the year that I lost 100 pounds, so I'm not really sure how all that goes together. But all of a sudden, I wanted to be like, I'm going to live it up in my 20s because I'm finally not 300 pounds. And then I went all crazy. Anyway, I met a girl who I became very close friends with, who, you know, in the pre-married days of Randy Wang was a girl that I had a crush on, but I knew I had no chance with. But you know what? I was going to be friends. She was fun. She was a good rave girl. She calls me one night, and I'm sitting at home, and says, I need you to come get me in Hollywood. I said, oh, okay. And I don't know what that was about, but I'm going to come running. And I'm looking around. I don't know what bar this girl is at, but somehow she finds me as I'm driving around circling the area in Hollywood, runs into my car, and she says, I was on a date and someone spiked my drink. I need you to save me. And so I did the valiant thing, and I drove her home. And I made sure that she was okay, because that stuff was starting to affect her in very strange ways that a less ethical person could absolutely take advantage of. But I was never going to do that. But to see that experience firsthand and to know how probably common it is, yet not talked about, I'm okay with this law being in effect if it just at the very least brings awareness to the fact that there are creepy-ass guys that do this, and it needs to be addressed. So there you go. If you go to the bar and you're out with someone shady, you can test to see if they're trying to slip you a Mickey. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We've been talking a lot ever since we launched this show back in January about the scourge of street takeovers in Los Angeles. And since nothing seems to be getting done to punish the people that perpetrate these and attend these, they keep getting worse and worse and worse, including one that happened over the weekend in downtown LA that included a whole bunch of cars getting set on fire. For more on this, we go to a report from KCAL.
Street takeover in downtown LA turns into an inferno after things get out of hand.
KCAL News reporter Lauren Posen is in downtown LA, where last night cars were even lit on fire.
Just straight up lawlessness. If you're lighting cars on fire because you got so hopped up that people were doing donuts in an intersection, well, you're probably really drunk or really high, but you also are under the impression that nothing is going to happen to you.
You don't have to go far to see the damage from this takeover. Right behind me right away, the first thing you notice is just the tire marks from the cars doing donuts on the intersection here. And then at another part of it, you can see the asphalt just charred, and look at all that glass.
I like that.
Look at all that glass.
Look at all that glass.
Look at all that glass. This wild video looks like...
It's not like there's no evidence of these things. They're all filmed. They're all posted on social media. They're all posted on YouTube. We know who's doing this over and over again. Sometimes it's the same cars. I've seen that purple car so many times.
This wild video looks like a scene out of a movie, but it's not. It's a street takeover that turned into an inferno in downtown Los Angeles. LAPD says it happened at the intersection of 18th and Main just before 3 Saturday morning. Over 50 cars converged near the freeway underpass, and police say at least 2.
You know, we don't want fires to start under freeways. Anything bad could happen when we do that. Oh, yeah, the 10 freeway melted. Again, maybe let's not have a society where people feel so encouraged to light things on fire under a freeway.
Over 50 cars converged near the freeway underpass, and police say at least 2 were intentionally set on fire. Explosions heard as the cars burned to the ground. Traffic backed up around the corner with...
I'm going to guess those cars were stolen. And if they were stolen, I'm going to guess, just a hunch, they were Kias.
Traffic backed up around the corner with drivers trying to dodge the flames.
How about that? I got stuck in traffic in San Francisco because of a pride parade. People in downtown LA were stuck in traffic because cars were getting set on fire in a street takeover intersection.
Councilmember Kevin DeLeon says this happening in his district is unacceptable.
So it angers me because it puts other people in danger.
And what have you done about it besides say that you're going to start a task force? What has Kevin DeLeon done about the copper wire task force that was going to stop all the thieving of the copper on the 6th Street Bridge? Hasn't done anything. I hate to say it because the person running against him is a full-on Ulysses Hernandez clone, but Kevin DeLeon is going to lose and lose badly in November.
So it angers me because it puts other people in danger.
Just a few weeks ago, at another downtown takeover, gunshots were fired. Police found shell casings but made no arrest.
It's the postscript to every one of these stories. LAPD cannot or is not able to do anything to stop these incredibly dangerous, violent people.
There is a task force made up of LA County Sheriff's deputies, California Highway Patrol, and Los Angeles Police Department officers.
Also another issue that Gavin Newsom likes to completely ignore, even though it's plaguing all the major cities in his state. And while I don't think it's a uniquely California problem, I don't hear about this nearly as much in other states.
Dedicated to finding and stopping takeovers. DeLeon says on July 1st, more funds will be allocated to that force.
We actually have reduced the number of street takeovers in LA, but in particular in downtown Los Angeles.
You just had one with cars that were lit on fire this weekend. Last weekend, there were ones with shots fired. The weekend before that, all the lights got ripped out again at 6th Street Bridge. So how exactly have you reduced the number? I don't think you have. If you had reduced the number, then KCAL would be reporting on something different right now.
But nonetheless, it has not completely, come to a halt.
But Damian Kevitt with Streets Are For Everyone thinks another approach could work.
More holistically, not necessarily just from a enforcement perspective, which is a tool, but also how do we provide areas where this can be done legally? How do we do education?
Police.
Okay, so we need to give the people that love to do donuts and dangerous stunts a place to do this legally. I mean, we have speedways. We have, there's Irwindale. There used to be the Saugus Speedway. You can go out to Paris, California and go to that dirt track. I've actually been in a Crash the Boats race in that one. Oh, and I also did another stock car race, too. That was a lot of fun. Those were some good days. That was also 10 years ago. But no, we're not doing anything.
More holistically, not necessarily just from a enforcement perspective.
But it's not about the stunts. It's about the idea of the lawlessness, getting excited about the lawlessness. That's why looting happens after these things. And there's explosions. This isn't just people that want to go see a stunt show. If they wanted to go see a stunt show, they could go to Universal Studios. They're still doing the Waterworld show, and it's still spectacular.
Which is a tool. But also, how do we provide areas where this can be done legally? How do we...
how can we have somebody legally take over a street?
Do education.
Police say when they got to the scene of this most recent takeover, the crowd scattered. No arrests were made, and despite the massive fire, no one got hurt.
So, hey, listen, if you want to go race, you want to be a speed racer, go to a race.
Great reference, Kevin De Leon.
No one got hurt.
So, hey, listen, if you want to go race, you want to be a speed racer, go to a racetrack and go as fast as you want, go race, your heart out. I know they're not going to listen to that, but listen, that's why we're going to beef up, with resources, at least in downtown LA, to make sure we can put a huge dent on those cars.
Earlier this year, City Council passed a pilot program to push back on all these illegal takeovers by selecting different intersections throughout the city and doing things like putting raised pavement markers and hardened center lines to try to deter this behavior.
And it hasn't worked.
But unfortunately, this intersection wasn't on the list. Reporting in downtown Los Angeles, Lauren Posen, KCAL News.
There's the latest on the never-ending scourge of street takeovers, but since his name was mentioned, since he was in the story, Kevin De Leon, on this patriotic week, I think it's time for the pledge.
Madam President, today is Tuesday and time for the flag salute.
Mr. De Leon, can you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
Thank you very much, Madam President. It'd be an honor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Indivisible, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. For which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oof.
3.5 years later, that clip never gets old. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC, broadcasting live from San Francisco in an actual radio studio that looks like it was built after the year 2000. What a concept. It is absolutely beautiful here. Having a great time and going to go wander and explore the city. I do love a walkable city. Now, I prefer a smaller place like Santa Fe, New Mexico, but I do love that I can walk around everywhere. Again, always the caveat, don't go anywhere near the Tenderloin. And I would also say Soma, south of Market. Most of the other neighborhoods are pretty nice and a lot cleaner than I thought they would be. So it looks like, at least as long as you ignore the Tenderloin, San Francisco is making somewhat of an effort. And there are things that I'm discovering on this trip that I definitely want to go back again and again for. Number one, if it's this cool in the summer, got to come up here for that. Whether it's, coming up to San Francisco proper or going up to Napa Sonoma or going down to Carmel, there's a lot to enjoy in Northern California, and it's a lot cooler than it is in Southern California in the month of July. But I was in shock this morning. My wife and I got up very early and went down to Golden Gate Park. And it is massive, and there are so many things to see there. Botanical gardens, there's a bison pen, there are old showgrounds, because I guess at one point they used to have horse shows out there. There's windmills, there are restaurants that are in the park, and there is so much beautiful nature, great manicured walking paths, little lakes you can walk around. And for the most part, it felt like we had the place to ourselves. We rarely saw anybody, but it was like 7 a.m. But of course, We were up early because we had a hotel room that was facing the bay, and I saw the sun rising as I was waking up, and that was pretty darn cool. So I'm enjoying my time in San Francisco. We're going to be here tomorrow doing the John Phillips Show. I'll be back doing another version of this show from 5 to 6. On Wednesday, it's another noon to 3 John Phillips Show, and then I'm taking off early so I can get down and start my weekend. But it sure seems like there are a lot of people that are going to be enjoying themselves, whether they're exploring the state of California, exploring somewhere throughout the country or internationally. This is going to be a massive week for travel, and I think we've all earned it. We all need it. We all could use some time off. So enjoy yourselves wherever you're traveling on these holidays. I'm going to be having my fun out here. I'm going to be finding some fun bars, too. Our goal is to find lots of places that are dog-friendly because we brought the dogs, and I have this feeling that if San Francisco is anything goes with the people that are doing drugs in the alley, I'd like to see them stop me from bringing my dogs into a restaurant. But, you know, they're service dogs. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It has been an absolute pleasure to host this show every single day from 5 to 6, talking about the local issues that matter to you most, taking your phone calls. You miss any one of our shows, like our Friday happy hours, you can get the podcast at kabc.com. Click on podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify. Search for the News Blitz with Randy Wang. See you tomorrow on KABC.